The story of Job is one of the most powerful accounts of faith and integrity in the Bible, a story where a righteous man faces unimaginable suffering. Job is not just a man who suffers, he's a man who chooses to stand firm in his beliefs, even when his entire world is shattered. Imagine losing everything you hold dear, your family, your wealth, and even your health, only to be left with a haunting question: why? This is the story of Job, a battle between faith and despair, and a relentless test of his integrity in the face of spiritual attack. Today, we'll dive deep into this dramatic battle of faith and integrity, exploring how Job's unwavering trust in God can strengthen our own commitment amid life's spiritual challenges. If you're ready to understand what it truly means to stand firm in faith, even when the world tries to pull you down, stay with us as we uncover the timeless lessons in Job's story. Job was a man of remarkable faith, known in his time for his integrity and unwavering devotion to God. He lived a life blessed with abundance. He was wealthy, respected, and had a loving family. Described as blameless and upright, Job feared God and shunned evil. His life was an example of someone who walked in faith and righteousness, honoring God with his actions and devotion. But beyond his prosperity, Job's true strength lay in his relationship with God. This relationship, however, would soon be tested in unimaginable ways. The story takes a dramatic turn when Satan appears before God, challenging the foundation of Job's faith. Satan argues that Job's loyalty to God is not genuine, claiming that Job only serves God because of the blessings and protection he has received. In Satan's eyes, Job's faith is conditional, sustained only by his comfortable life. In essence, Satan proposes that if Job were to lose everything, his faith would crumble, and he would curse God. This claim sets the stage for a profound test of faith, one that would strip Job of everything and leave his integrity on trial. God grants Satan permission to test Job, but sets one boundary: Satan is not allowed to harm Job physically in the beginning. This permission marks the beginning of an intense spiritual battle, not only testing Job's loyalty, but also revealing the strength of his relationship with God. Satan's goal is simple: destroy Job's faith by taking away every reason he has to be grateful. This challenge represents more than just a test for Job. It's a cosmic confrontation between good and evil, where Job's response will serve as a testament to the authenticity of faith rooted in integrity. In many ways, Job's situation mirrors the struggles we face when we encounter difficulties that shake our sense of security and purpose. Like Job, we may sometimes feel as though our commitment to God is being questioned when we encounter hardships. When circumstances are favorable, it's easy to hold on to faith, but what happens when our foundation is shaken? Job's story confronts this question directly, showing us that true faith transcends circumstances and that integrity is not defined by what we have, but by who we are when everything else is stripped away. As Job's life unravels in the chapters to come, we'll see how he responds to loss and adversity, holding fast to his beliefs even when tested beyond what seems bearable. His journey is one of resilience, revealing the depths of a faith that withstands the fiercest storms. Job's story encourages us to question where we place our faith and challenges us to consider the role of integrity in our relationship with God. The test on Job's life begins with a devastating sequence of losses, each one designed to strip away his security and question his loyalty to God. In a single day, Job's world crumbles. Messengers arrive one after another with horrifying news. His livestock, his wealth, and his servants are destroyed by raids and natural disasters. Finally, the worst news reaches him. All of his children have perished in a tragic accident. In mere moments, everything Job once held dear is gone. This isn't just a test of endurance, it's a direct assault on his faith and trust in God. The extent of Job's losses is staggering. and it's easy to imagine how such a tragedy could lead anyone to despair. But Job's response is remarkable. In his grief, he falls to the ground in worship, proclaiming, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Rather than curse God or question his goodness, Job acknowledges that everything he had was ultimately a gift from God. This moment of surrender demonstrates a faith rooted not in his possessions or blessings, but in a profound understanding of God's sovereignty. But Satan is not finished. Seeing that Job's faith remains intact despite these losses, Satan challenges God again, claiming that Job's integrity would surely break if his own body were afflicted. God permits Satan to test Job's physical health, setting the stage for a new wave of suffering. Job's body is soon covered in painful sores, causing him relentless agony. He finds himself sitting on an ash heap, scraping his skin with broken pottery to relieve the torment. His suffering is now both internal and external, testing every aspect of his spirit. At this point, Job's wife, witnessing his suffering, urges him to curse God and die. Her words reflect the overwhelming despair of the situation, as she can no longer bear to see her husband in such pain. But Job's response is steadfast. He replies, "Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" Job's words reveal a depth of faith and integrity that refuse to waver, even when faced with unimaginable pain and loss. His response is not a denial of his suffering, but an acceptance of God's will, regardless of his own understanding. Job's unyielding faith through this spiritual attack challenges us to consider the foundations of our own beliefs. When everything we hold dear is stripped away, when the very things that make life worth living are taken from us, how do we respond? Job's reaction teaches us that true integrity does not depend on favorable circumstances. Instead, it comes from a place of deep surrender to God's plan, even when it remains shrouded in mystery. Job doesn't pretend that his suffering is easy, nor does he downplay his pain. Yet through it all, he holds on to his commitment to honor God. This relentless test of Job's faith illustrates the concept of spiritual warfare, where faith and doubt are in constant conflict. Satan's objective is clear: to break Job's spirit and lead him to curse God. By allowing this test, God reveals that faith isn't a transaction, but a relationship. Job's refusal to turn against God, even in his darkest moments, shows that his relationship with God is based on love and reverence, not on what he can receive. His story reminds us that faith grounded in true integrity can withstand even the fiercest of trials. As we continue through Job's journey, we'll see how he navigates the isolation and misunderstanding from those around him. His strength in adversity not only demonstrates resilience, but also serves as a testament to the depth of a faith that refuses to falter, even in the face of intense spiritual attack. Job's experience challenges us to ask ourselves, when faced with hardship, will our faith be a foundation, or will it crumble under pressure? In the depths of his suffering, Job's response is nothing short of profound. He has lost his wealth, his family, and now his health. He sits in physical agony, isolated from society, struggling with grief and despair. Yet, rather than abandon his faith, Job turns his anguish into a direct conversation with God. He doesn't suppress his feelings or pretend that everything is fine. Instead, he expresses his pain openly, questioning the reasons behind his suffering while holding on to his integrity. Job's response is raw, honest, and deeply human, reflecting both his anguish and his refusal to turn away from God. Job's faith is not a passive acceptance of his suffering. He actively wrestles with questions of justice, purpose, and divine sovereignty. In his darkest moments, he laments, "Why did I not perish at birth and die as I came from the womb?" Job's words reveal his inner struggle as he tries to make sense of the immense pain he is enduring. However, even as he voices his despair, Job never curses God or accuses him of wrongdoing. Instead, he remains steadfast in his commitment to honor God, even when the reasons for his suffering are beyond his understanding. This honesty in Job's response teaches us a crucial lesson about faith. Having integrity does not mean ignoring or denying our pain. Job's faith is marked by a willingness to confront his suffering head-on, all while maintaining his trust in God's goodness. His faith is not a shield that protects him from grief, rather it's a foundation that sustains him through it. Job's struggle with God is an example of a relationship that allows for doubt and questioning, showing that true faith can handle the weight of our deepest sorrows. As Job's suffering continues, he searches for answers, longing for a glimpse of God's purpose in his pain. In his search, he cries out, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." This statement encapsulates the paradox of Job's faith, a deep trust that persists even when God's presence feels distant and his reasons remain hidden. Job's decision to maintain hope despite everything he has lost reveals a profound understanding of faith. For him, trusting in God is not conditional. It's a choice to believe in God's goodness, even in the midst of darkness. Job's response resonates with anyone who has felt abandoned or misunderstood in their suffering. His experience challenges us to reflect on our own reactions when we face trials that seem insurmountable. Job's unwavering commitment to his integrity, even when he felt isolated and betrayed by life's circumstances, serves as a powerful example. His honesty and vulnerability show us that it's possible to remain faithful while grappling with difficult emotions, doubts, and questions. Through Job, we learn that true faith doesn't ignore pain. It invites God into our pain, trusting that He is present even when His reasons are unknown. As we move forward, Job's story will continue to unfold, revealing how his unwavering integrity remains a beacon of strength in the face of relentless suffering. His relationship with God, filled with both questions and trust, challenges us to consider our own approach to faith when life's circumstances seem unbearable. Job's example encourages us to hold on to our integrity, embracing the complexity of faith in times of trial. As Job endures his suffering, he is visited by three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. Initially, they sit with him in silence, sharing in his grief. But as Job begins to voice his pain and questions, his friends reveal their true perspectives. Instead of offering comfort, they insist that Job's suffering must be the result of some hidden sin. They argue that God is just and would not allow such intense suffering unless it was deserved. Their words are harsh, pushing Job to search for guilt within himself, and they challenge his integrity, suggesting that his suffering is a divine punishment. Job's friends represent a common perspective, the belief that suffering is always a result of personal wrongdoing. This retribution theology assumes that good things happen to good people and bad things to bad people. For Job, who has lived a life of integrity and righteousness, these accusations add another layer to his suffering. Not only is he grappling with his immense losses, but he now faces judgment and misunderstanding from those closest to him. His friends' insistence on his guilt puts him in a difficult position, challenging his self-understanding and testing his resolve to maintain his innocence. Despite their relentless questioning, Job refuses to accept their accusations. He knows that he has not sinned in a way that would justify such suffering, and he remains steadfast in his belief that his pain is not a result of divine punishment. This resistance highlights Job's integrity. He refuses to compromise his principles or confess to something he did not do, even under immense social pressure. Job's ability to hold on to his integrity, despite the negative counsel of his friends, reveals a strength of character that is unshakable. This interaction with his friends teaches us a valuable lesson about handling negative advice. When we face hardship, others may be quick to judge, offering simplistic explanations or misguided advice. Job's experience reminds us that not all counsel, even from well-meaning friends, is grounded in truth or aligned with God's will. His story encourages us to seek God's wisdom over human judgment, holding firm to our integrity even when others question it. As Job endures his suffering, two defining virtues begin to emerge: his unwavering integrity and his remarkable patience. Despite the overwhelming pressure from his circumstances and the insistence of his friends that he must have sinned, Job holds firmly to his beliefs and maintains his commitment to God. Job's integrity is not based on public perception or approval, but on a deep, internal commitment to his faith and values. This commitment enables him to stand firm, even when those around him fail to support or understand him. Job's patience is equally extraordinary. Unlike many of us who may become frustrated or lose hope when we encounter challenges, Job continues to trust that there is meaning beyond his understanding. Patience, in Job's case, is not a passive waiting. It's an active choice to endure without abandoning his faith. Job does not pretend that his suffering is easy or downplay his pain. Instead, he acknowledges his struggles openly, yet refuses to compromise his character or curse God. His patience is the product of a deep-seated faith that sustains him through even the darkest moments. One of the most profound aspects of Job's patience is his ability to wait without demanding answers. He longs to understand why he is suffering, yet he doesn't insist that God explain himself. Job's patience reveals a level of trust that goes beyond human logic. He believes that God's wisdom surpasses his own understanding even when that wisdom is hidden. This willingness to wait without understanding challenges us to reflect on our own responses to hardship. Do we demand explanations, or are we willing to trust in God's unseen purpose? Job's integrity and patience, tested in the crucible of suffering, provide a model for how to approach our own trials. His story shows us that integrity is not just a set of principles to follow, but a way of living that stays constant regardless of external circumstances. His patience is a testament to the power of waiting on God, even when answers seem out of reach. Together, these virtues demonstrate that a life built on faith can withstand even the most relentless storms. For anyone facing hardships, Job's story serves as a reminder that patience and integrity are not passive qualities. They are active decisions that require strength, resilience, and an unyielding commitment to one's faith. Job's patience does not mean he is without questions, but it shows that faith can coexist with uncertainty. His integrity does not mean he is unaffected by others' judgments, but it demonstrates that true character remains steady, regardless of external pressures. After enduring relentless suffering, Job finally receives a response from God. But this response is unlike anything Job could have expected. Instead of giving Job a direct answer to his why, God speaks from a whirlwind, reminding Job of the vastness of creation and the limits of human understanding. God presents a series of questions about the natural world, asking Job where he was when the foundations of the earth were laid, or if he can command the morning or set the boundaries of the oceans. These questions don't provide a direct answer to Job's suffering, but they shift his perspective, showing him that God's wisdom encompasses far more than human comprehension. God's response is humbling, and yet it's also deeply comforting. Through his words, God reveals that there are aspects of existence that remain beyond human grasp, mysteries that only the Creator understands. This interaction doesn't diminish Job's suffering, but places it within a greater context, a divine framework that Job hadn't considered. Job's pain remains real and intense, but God's response reminds him and us that the Creator is present, wise and sovereign over all, even in the darkest times. Job's experience challenges the notion that faith requires complete understanding. In fact, his journey shows that real faith may require trusting in God precisely when answers are unclear. By shifting Job's focus from his immediate pain to the grandeur of creation, God encourages Job to see beyond his own experience. It's a reminder that our lives are part of a larger, divine story, one that often surpasses our understanding. This response from God underscores that faith is not always about receiving answers, but about trusting in the one who holds those answers. The interaction between God and Job brings a powerful revelation. Purpose can exist in suffering even when that purpose isn't fully revealed. For Job, the purpose wasn't in receiving a clear explanation, but in gaining a deeper understanding of God's presence and power. This perspective is transformative, offering Job a renewed sense of humility and reverence. While his questions remain, his heart finds peace in acknowledging God's wisdom and authority. God's response also serves as a reminder that, even when we can't see it, there is a divine purpose woven into our lives. Our pain and struggles may not always make sense, but they are known to God, who understands the bigger picture. Job's experience invites us to release our need for control, surrendering our uncertainties to the God who sees and knows all. It encourages us to replace our demand for explanations with a deeper trust in God's character. Job's story resonates with anyone who has ever asked why in the midst of hardship. It teaches us that while we may long for answers, there is comfort in knowing that God is present and His wisdom is greater than our own. This perspective does not make suffering disappear, but it reframes it, providing strength to endure and a sense of peace that transcends our understanding. Job's encounter with God is a testament to the power of faith that trusts without demanding clarity. In the end, Job is not left with an answer to his suffering, but with a renewed relationship with God, strengthened by a deeper appreciation of God's wisdom and sovereignty. Through his pain, Job discovers a level of faith that goes beyond understanding, rooted instead in awe and reverence for a God who is infinitely wise and eternally present. Following Job's encounter with God, a profound transformation occurs, not just within Job, but in his life circumstances as well. God restores Job's fortunes, blessing him with even more than he had before. His wealth is doubled, he has more children, and his relationships are renewed. This restoration is not simply a reward for enduring suffering, but a testament to the strength of his faith and integrity. Job's unwavering commitment to God, even in the face of unimaginable loss, brings about a victory that goes beyond material blessings. This restoration highlights that, although Job's faith was tested, his integrity remained intact. His relationship with God wasn't transactional. Job didn't maintain his faith in hopes of receiving something in return. Instead, his loyalty to God was rooted in reverence, trust, and a deep sense of integrity. By holding fast to his beliefs, even when everything seemed lost, Job demonstrated that true faith endures through trials, without guarantees or promises of reward. His story illustrates that God values our faithfulness, especially when it's tested in the hardest of times. Job's restoration also serves as a reminder that, though suffering may feel endless, it is not without purpose or potential for renewal. While Job never receives a direct answer to the why behind his suffering, the blessings he experiences afterwards suggest that God sees and acknowledges every trial we endure. This renewed blessing doesn't erase Job's grief, but adds depth to his journey, showing that God is both just and compassionate, restoring joy and peace to those who remain faithful. For anyone who has endured prolonged suffering or felt tested beyond their limits, Job's story offers a message of hope and resilience. It reminds us that God sees our struggles, values our integrity, and is capable of bringing restoration in ways we might not expect. Job's final chapter is a testament that faith held firm in the face of hardship can lead to a restoration that is both profound and lasting. The outcome of Job's story demonstrates that the journey through suffering, though painful, can strengthen our relationship with God. Job's experience encourages us to trust in God's goodness and to hold on to our faith, knowing that He is present and able to renew our lives, even after the darkest of seasons. Job's victory isn't just in the restoration of his fortune, it's in the restoration of his spirit, deeply rooted in faith and integrity. Job's story is rich with lessons that apply directly to our lives, especially for those times when faith and integrity are challenged. While most of us will not experience loss to the degree Job did, his responses to suffering, his unwavering integrity, and his approach to God provide practical insights that can help us navigate our own trials. Here are some key lessons drawn from Job's journey and how they can be applied in our daily lives. 1. Seek God first in times of trouble. Job's immediate response to his suffering was to turn toward God. In his grief, he worshipped and acknowledged God's sovereignty rather than allowing his pain to distance him from his faith. This teaches us the importance of seeking God first, especially when hardship strikes. Instead of looking for answers in our own understanding, turning to God in prayer and worship can bring peace and perspective that transcend circumstances. In practical terms, this might mean setting aside time each day to connect with God, even when answers are unclear. 2. Maintain integrity, regardless of circumstances. Throughout his ordeal, Job never compromised his integrity, even when others questioned him or offered misguided advice. Integrity, as Job demonstrates, is not conditional on favorable situations. It's a steadfast commitment to one's beliefs, values, and faith, regardless of what is happening around us. In our lives, maintaining integrity may look like upholding honesty, compassion, and faith in God, even in challenging environments. This could mean standing up for what is right at work, honoring commitments to loved ones, or staying true to God's principles when we're faced with moral or ethical dilemmas. 3. Be cautious with counsel. During vulnerable times, Job's friends, though well-meaning, repeatedly offered advice that only deepened his suffering. They approached Job's pain with judgment and simplistic answers, insisting that his suffering was a result of sin. Job's experience reminds us that, in moments of vulnerability, not all advice is beneficial or aligned with God's truth. Practical application of this lesson involves seeking counsel that aligns with God's wisdom, particularly from people who understand the complexities of faith. In challenging times, it's valuable to discern the sources of advice we accept, leaning on trusted spiritual mentors, prayer, and scripture for guidance. 4. Patience is essential, even when we don't understand. One of Job's defining qualities was his patience in the midst of trials. Patience doesn't mean that he passively accepted his suffering, but rather that he endured it without losing his faith. When life feels overwhelming or circumstances seem unjust, practicing patience, trusting in God's timing and wisdom, can be difficult but transformative. In practical terms, this might involve choosing to wait on God's direction before making hasty decisions or maintaining faith while waiting for answers. Job's patience reminds us that God's timing is often beyond our understanding, but His presence is constant. 5. Honesty with God is part of a strong faith. Job's conversations with God were raw and honest. He expressed his pain, confusion, and doubts without fear, showing that faith can coexist with questioning and vulnerability. Rather than hiding his struggles, Job brought them directly to God, trusting that his relationship could handle the weight of his sorrow. This teaches us that we don't need to suppress our emotions in front of God. Instead, we are invited to be open, sharing our burdens in prayer. Practical application might look like journaling, praying honestly about feelings, or seeking spiritual support when faith feels strained. 6. Recognize that some answers may remain unseen. In the end, Job never received a direct answer for his suffering, yet he found peace in trusting God's wisdom and presence. This lesson encourages us to let go of our need for immediate explanations and instead trust that God's understanding is infinitely greater than ours. For practical application, when faced with situations that don't make sense, we can choose to rest in God's love and sovereignty, remembering that faith sometimes means accepting that we won't have all the answers. 7. Embrace the possibility of restoration and renewal. God's restoration of Job's life reminds us that while suffering is often unavoidable, it is not necessarily permanent. Job's experience encourages us to trust in God's ability to bring healing and restoration, even after deep loss. This doesn't imply that life will always return to what it once was, but it reassures us that God can renew and redeem situations in ways we might not anticipate. In our own lives, this might look like holding on to hope during difficult times and being open to new beginnings that reflect God's restorative power. By applying these practical lessons, we can navigate life's trials with greater resilience, integrity, and faith. Job's story is a profound reminder that while we may face circumstances that test us to our core, the way we respond can deepen our relationship with God. Each of these lessons encourages us to trust more fully, live with greater honesty, and approach each day with a steadfast commitment to the values God instills in us. Job's journey isn't simply a story of loss and suffering, it's a guide to building a life of integrity and unbreakable faith. Job's journey is one of the most powerful examples of faith and integrity in the face of relentless suffering. His story reminds us that true faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting in God even when the answers remain elusive. Job's unwavering commitment to God, despite overwhelming pain and loss, offers a profound lesson on the resilience of the human spirit and the strength that comes from a life rooted in integrity. For anyone facing challenges of their own, Job's experience serves as both comfort and motivation. It encourages us to remain grounded in faith, to lean on God even in our darkest hours, and to trust that He is with us through every season of hardship. Job's story reminds us that while we may never fully grasp the reasons behind our struggles, there is deep purpose and growth to be found in our unwavering commitment to God. Staying faithful isn't just a source of inner strength, it becomes a testimony of hope and endurance to those around us. If you feel inspired to deepen your connection with God and develop habits that reinforce this kind of unshakable faith, consider exploring our ebook, 30 Habits to Draw Closer to God. Designed to help you build daily practices of trust, integrity, and patience, this guide offers practical steps for cultivating a life of faith, even amidst challenges. Each chapter provides tools and reflections to bring peace, clarity, and confidence into your relationship with God. Let Job's example inspire you to take the next step in strengthening your faith journey, drawing closer to the one who sees, knows, and walks with you every step of the way.